You wake up before the sun does. Not because you want to, because something in the dark moved. You don't know what it was. You heard it. A low rustle somewhere past the tree line, maybe 40 feet out. Your eyes open, and your body is already tense before your mind catches up. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. Your nervous system is smarter than you are. It does not wait for permission. You are lying on a bed of dry grass and animal hide. The hide is from a red deer. You killed it 11 days ago with a flint-tipped spear, and 2 other people from your group. The smell of it is still there, faintly, underneath the smoke. You sleep close to the fire, but not too close. You have learned that the hard way. A spark caught your forearm once, left a scar that is still pink and raised. You touch it sometimes without thinking about it. There are 14 people in your group. Right now, in the dark before dawn, you can count 8 of them nearby. The other 6 went south 3 days ago, looking for a river crossing. They have not come back. You do not talk about this. You keep moving. That is the agreement, unspoken, between all of you. This is approximately 40,000 years ago, somewhere in what will eventually be called southern France. The air temperature right now is around 38 degrees Fahrenheit. You are not wearing enough. Nobody is. You have a wrapped hide over your shoulders and leather tied around your feet with strips of sinew. The leather is stiff and does not fit well. Your left heel has been bleeding for 2 days. You have packed it with moss. It is not getting better. It is not getting worse. That is the best you can hope for right now. You get up. The fire is low. You feed it 2 small branches and a piece of dried bark. The smoke shifts and stings your eyes. You blink it away. You do this every morning. You will do this every morning for the rest of your life, however long that is. The average person in your time lives to somewhere around 35 years old, if they are lucky. If the winters are mild, if the group stays together, if the wound on their heel does not go septic. You are 22. You feel older than that. The sky begins to go gray somewhere to the east, behind the ridge. You can see the outline of the limestone cliff face above you. There are paintings on that cliff, done by your group and the groups before yours. Ochre handprints and red bison, and something that looks like a running horse. Nobody made those marks because they were told to. Nobody planned it. Someone picked up a piece of iron-rich stone and pressed their palm flat against the rock and blew pigment around it. Now it is permanent. Now it will outlast everyone who made it by roughly 40,000 years. You do not know this, of course. You just think it is beautiful. That is enough. Breakfast does not exist the way you will eventually understand the concept. You eat what there is. Right now there is dried meat from the deer, hard as wood, and some small tubers that were roasted yesterday in the coals. You chew the meat for a long time. Your back left molar has been loose for a week. You avoid using that side of your mouth. Dental pain in this era has no solution. You either outlast it or you do not. 45 minutes after sunrise, the group begins to move. Nobody gives an order. It happens the way it always happens. One person stands up, wraps their hide around them, picks up their spear, then another. Then the rest follow. There is a man in your group who is older than the others, maybe 38 or 40 years old, which makes him ancient by the standards of this world. He does not lead with commands. He leads with direction. He walks a certain way, makes a sound low in his throat when he sees something worth stopping for, raises his hand flat when he wants silence. You have been watching him since you were a child. You have learned more from watching him than from anything anyone has ever said to you. You are moving east today, following the river valley. The river is called nothing. It has no name. It is just the river, the one that is 2 days' walk from the limestone ridge, the one where the salmon run in spring. It is not spring yet. You are going to the river for water, and for the possibility of catching something. Fishing in this period means standing in cold water, and stabbing at movement with a sharpened stick, or crouching on a rock for 2 hours waiting for a fish to come close enough to grab with your hands. Your success rate is not good. Nobody's is. But the river is also where the animals come to drink, which means it is also where you might find deer, or boar, or, if you are very unlucky or very desperate, something larger. The walk takes most of the morning. You cover maybe 6 miles. That sounds short. It is not short. The terrain is not flat. There is no path. You are pushing through scrub brush and crossing a frozen stream that cracks under your weight, and climbing a rocky slope where the footing is unpredictable. Your heel is bleeding again. You can feel it. that specific wet warmth inside the leather wrapping. You do not stop. Stopping does not help. You reach the river valley around midday. The light is pale and thin, the kind of winter light that gives no warmth. The river is partially iced at the edges, running dark and fast in the center. You can see animal tracks in the mud along the bank. Deer, several of them, came through here recently, maybe 2 hours ago based on how the edges of the prints have dried. The older man crouches and studies them for a long time. You crouch next to him. You look at what he is looking at. You are learning to read the world the way other people learn to read words. 3 of the younger men in your group take the spears and follow the deer tracks north along the bank. The rest of you stay by the river and make a temporary camp. You gather dry wood, which takes longer than it should because it has been raining on and off for a week, and most of the dead wood on the ground is damp. You find some dry branches sheltered under a fallen pine and carry them back. You start a fire with a bow drill, which is a stick, a flat piece of soft wood, a piece of harder wood shaped like a spindle, and a loop of sinew. You have done this hundreds of times. It still takes 7 minutes. Your hands are cold, and the friction keeps slipping. On the 3rd attempt, the ember catches, and you cup it like it is the most important thing in the world, because right now, it is. Nobody comes back with a deer that afternoon. They come back just before dark with a single rabbit. 1 rabbit between 14 people is not a meal. It is a reminder. The rabbit gets divided anyway. You get a piece of the back leg. You eat it down to the bone, and then you crack the bone on a rock and suck out the marrow. The marrow is rich and fatty and tastes like something close to butter. You will not eat actual butter for another 35,000 years or so, but this is close enough. This is what you have. Night comes fast. The temperature drops to around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You build the fire up as high as it will safely go, and the group pulls in tight around it, shoulders touching, hides overlapping. This is not sentiment, this is thermodynamics. You huddle together because the combined heat of 14 bodies is survivable. Separate, in the dark, at 25 degrees. With inadequate clothing, some of you would not wake up. You know this the way you know everything important in your life. Not as a fact you were taught, but as a truth your body already holds. The sky above the valley is absolute. No light pollution for 1,000 miles in any direction. No city, no village, no candle burning in a distant window. Just stars, more of them than you can count, thick as thrown salt from one horizon to the other. The Milky Way is a literal smear of white across the black. You have looked at this sky every clear night of your life. You do not have a word for the galaxy. You just know it is there, and that it is enormous, and that it does not care about the cold, or the rabbit, or the heel, or any of it. You do not find this comforting. You do not find it frightening. You just look at it. You sleep in shifts, loosely. Someone is always at least half awake. The fire is never allowed to go completely out. In the morning, the ground around you is frozen, and the grass is white with frost. But the fire is still burning. That counts. Winter in this era is a negotiation. You are not waiting for spring the way someone in a heated apartment waits for a season to change. You are actively surviving winter, day by day, making 100 small decisions that together determine whether you make it to the other side. How much food is left, where the next food will come from, whether the group should move to lower ground, where the temperature is slightly warmer but the predators are more numerous, whether the heel wound is getting worse, whether the loose tooth will become an infection that climbs through your jaw and into your skull. You do not think about these things in terms of statistics or probabilities. You think about them in terms of what you can do today. That is a kind of wisdom that your descendants will spend thousands of years trying to recover. The group moves again after 2 days at the river. The hunters found nothing significant. A few more rabbits, some bird eggs from a nest in a rock crevice, a nest of overwintering beetles which sound disgusting and are, in fact, fine, slightly nutty, high in protein. You eat what you find. Your digestive system has adapted to this over generations. You can process food sources that would make a modern stomach revolt. You have been eating this way since you could choose solid food. You do not know what a vegetable aisle looks like. You do not know what a choice between options looks like, not when it comes to food. You eat what exists. Moving is the job. Moving is always the job. Your group follows a seasonal circuit that roughly covers an area of about 300 square miles over the course of a year. You know this territory the way you know your own hands. the limestone ridges to the north where the caves are, the river valleys to the east, the open grassland to the south where the wild horses graze in summer, the dense forest to the west where you almost never go because visibility is too low, and the bears denning in winter make it dangerous. You carry this map inside you. It is not a document. It is a body of knowledge accumulated through years of walking the same ground and watching what happens. The children in your group learn by watching and doing. There is no school. There is no curriculum. There is a world, and you are in it, and you learn it by living it. A child who is 8 years old in your time already knows how to start a fire, how to skin a rabbit, how to find water by reading the landscape, how to identify 20 or 30 edible plants by sight, and how to move quietly through the brush. A child who does not learn these things does not survive long enough to forget them. You had a sister, past tense. She was 2 years younger than you. She died in the winter 3 years ago from what was most likely pneumonia or something close to it. A fever, then a cough that went deep, then 3 days where she could not keep warm, no matter how close she was to the fire. There is no word for pneumonia in your language. There is no treatment. There is staying close and keeping the fire burning and being there at the end. You were there. You held her hand. Her hand was very cold. You do not have a ritual of grief that looks like what your descendants will eventually develop. No funeral service, no eulogy, no grave marker. You buried her in the soft ground near the river. You put a few small red ochre stones over her chest, because that is what your people do. And then you left, because staying in one place too long is dangerous. And because she was already gone, and you were still here. And being still here requires forward motion. You think about her sometimes. When the fever hits one of the children in the group, and you watch the adults watch the child, you think about her. That is grief in your time. Not a dedicated space for it, just a thing that sits in your chest, under the sternum, quiet until it is not. Spring comes. It does not come gently. It comes and stops and starts. A warm week followed by a cold snap, followed by rain for 5 days, followed by sunshine that actually means something. The snow retreats up the slopes. The ground softens. The first green things push up from the mud, small and pale and insistent. You know which ones are safe to eat. You pick them immediately and eat them raw, standing there in the mud with your fingers dirty. They taste like cold water and minerals and something faintly bitter. They taste like surviving. The salmon run begins in late spring. This is the best time of year. The river fills with fish moving upstream, dense enough in some shallow sections that you could, theoretically, walk across on their backs. You stand in the river for hours, water up to your thighs, which is around 52 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cold enough that your feet go numb within the first 15 minutes. You spear fish and throw them onto the bank where others gut and clean them. In a good day, your group can take in more calories than they have seen in the previous week combined. You smoke the excess fish over a slow fire for hours, until the flesh is hard and dark and preserved enough to last for several weeks. You pack it in bark. You carry it. It is weight, real weight. Maybe 6 or 7 pounds of dried fish that you add to the bundle you carry on your back, along with your toolkit and your extra hide and the pouch of ochre pigment you use for the handprints and markings. You walk with all of this, every day, over rough ground. Your shoulders and hips and lower back are a running conversation with the weight you carry. Summertime is freedom by your standards. The days are long and warm, sometimes reaching 70 or even 75 degrees Fahrenheit. You need less clothing. The food is abundant enough that hunger is not a daily companion. You move more slowly, camp in open places, spend evenings sitting around the fire, doing the things that accumulate into culture. Someone shapes a piece of bone into a flute-like instrument, 4 holes, blows through it to make a sound that rises and falls. Someone else chips flint with patient, precise strikes, making blades so thin they are almost translucent at the edge, sharper than almost anything that will exist until steel. You watch the technique. You try to replicate it. Your blades are functional, but not beautiful. His blades are both. You meet people from another group in late summer. They come out of the valley from the west, the forest you avoid. There are 9 of them. The meeting is tense for the first hour. Your spears are visible. Theirs are visible. Everyone is watching everyone else. Then the older man from your group makes a gesture, an open hand extended, palm up, which means the same thing it will eventually mean in sign languages developed thousands of years later. Here I am. I have nothing. This moment could become trade or become violence. It becomes trade. They have obsidian blades. You have dried fish. You also have the ochre pigment, which they seem very interested in. You exchange a pouch of it, roughly 4 ounces of powdered iron oxide, for 2 of the obsidian blades. Obsidian holds an edge that makes your flint blades look rough in comparison. You will keep this blade until it breaks or you die, whichever comes first. One person from the other group stays with yours for 2 weeks. A young woman, maybe 19 years old, fast runner, can track a deer across dry, rocky ground where you would lose the trail completely. You watch her with the kind of attention you give to someone who knows something you want to know. She does not have words in common with you. You build a shared vocabulary of about 30 gestures and sounds over the 2 weeks. It is enough to communicate what matters: danger, food, water, direction, stay, go, wait. Language, in its original form, is exactly this efficient, no more than it needs to be. Autumn arrives and the light changes. You feel it before you see it, a quality to the afternoon sun that is different, lower, less direct. The air at night drops fast. The animals are moving, the deer moving south, the birds overhead in long formations, the bears eating everything they can find before they disappear. You know what this means. Everyone knows what this means. You begin preparing for winter again. This is the primary project of autumn. You move back toward the limestone ridge, toward the cave overhangs that give shelter from the wind and rain. You cache food in rock crevices sealed with clay. You gather and dry plant material for bedding. You repair the worn sections of your hide coverings with new sinew and new patches. The older man spends 3 days napping a new spear point, working by firelight in the evenings, tapping stone against stone with the patience of someone who knows there is no other way to do it except slowly, carefully, one strike at a time. The winter that comes is harder than the last one. The temperature drops below 0 degrees Fahrenheit in January. The river freezes completely, solid enough to walk on. The salmon are gone. The deer have moved to ground you cannot easily reach. For 3 weeks in the deep cold, your group survives primarily on the cached food you put aside in autumn, supplemented by whatever small game you can find, and one successful hunt of a wild horse that took 2 days and left one of the hunters with a badly sprained ankle. The horse is enormous, a draft horse-sized animal, maybe 1,100 pounds, wild and fast and not remotely interested in being caught. You found a small group of them at a frozen water source. 3 horses, 2 adults, and a young one. You did not take the young one. You took the older female, the one moving slowest. The hunt involved 4 hunters, 2 driving the animal toward a natural drop in the terrain, while 2 waited at the bottom. The horse came over the edge and fell, and was killed at the bottom with spears. The whole thing took most of the morning, and then several hours of butchering. The meat from that one animal kept your group fed for almost 2 weeks. Every part of it was used. The hide, the bone marrow, the tendons, the fat around the organs, which you rendered by boiling it in a container made of birch bark, sealed with pine resin. Fat is calories. In deep winter, fat is survival. You eat it straight if you have to. You do not have to think twice about it. The ankle heals slowly, but it heals. There are moments in winter when you sit inside the cave overhang, the fire at the entrance keeping the wind back, the rock above you keeping the snow off, and the world outside is white and gray and absolutely still. In those moments, you are not surviving. You are just sitting. You can hear the fire and the breathing of the people around you, and the distant sound of wind over the ridge. Someone is making marks on a flat piece of bone with a thin flint point. Not pictures, just lines, regular intervals, grouped in 5s. 28 marks in 4 groups. Something to do with the moon. Something to do with counting. Something to do with the desire to track a pattern in the world, to prove that you noticed it, that you were paying attention. You are always paying attention. You have to be. The cost of not paying attention is not abstract. It is a misstep on ice at the top of a slope. It is a fire that goes out. It is a wound that you do not check for 3 days because you are tired. Your heel is fully healed now. New skin, smooth and tight, slightly lighter than the skin around it. You press it with your thumb sometimes. It does not hurt anymore. That feels like something, though you would not use the word lucky. Luck implies randomness. What you know is that you packed it with moss, kept it clean as best you could, kept moving, and it healed. You did the things that needed doing. It healed. That is the whole story. By the time the second spring comes, one of the women in your group has had a child, a girl, born in late winter during the worst of the cold, which is terrible timing and also the only timing available. The birth was long, around 16 hours. 3 women stayed with her through all of it. The child was small, maybe 5.5 pounds. She cried immediately, which is what you want. A child that cries immediately has lungs. She is alive, and she is loud, and she is wrapped in the softest piece of hide anyone in the group has. And you can watch her mother feed her, and look at her face, and you know that everything that has ever mattered, or will ever matter about being human, is contained entirely in those 2 people next to the fire. You have been keeping yourself alive for 22 years in a world that was not designed to accommodate you. There was no infrastructure, no safety net, no institution, no system. There was weather and terrain and other animals and the people around you and your own body and whatever knowledge you had managed to accumulate from watching the world carefully for 2 decades. That is the complete list of your resources. You are also, by any objective measure, extraordinarily competent. You can start a fire in 7 minutes in cold weather. You can track a deer across rocky terrain. You can identify edible plants across 3 seasons. You can navigate 300 square miles of wilderness by memory. You can knap a functional flint blade. You can read the sky for weather and the ground for animal movement, and the behavior of the people around you for danger or trust. You have been doing all of this since you could walk. You are not impressive by the standards of the world that will eventually replace yours. You have no degree, no title, no money, no property, no record of your existence that will survive more than a season or 2. But you are extraordinarily present. You are in your body completely, every single day, in a way that the people who will eventually replace you will spend their entire lives trying to remember how to do. You feel the cold. You feel the hunger. You feel the weight of the fish on your back, and the sting of the fire smoke, and the warmth of the people sleeping close on either side of you. You feel all of it. The spring is fully here now. The salmon will run again in a few weeks. The young woman who came from the other group 2 seasons ago came back this spring with 3 people from her original group. One of them is a man who makes things out of bone, carved figures that are small enough to fit in your palm, animals mostly, a running bison, something that might be a bird. He gave one of them to the child, the small girl born in winter. The child holds it in her fist and looks at it with the serious attention of someone confronting something they do not yet have words for. That small carved figure will eventually decompose, or it will not. Some objects from this time survive. They are found tens of thousands of years from now in excavations and placed behind glass in buildings with temperature-controlled environments and artificial lighting, and people stand in front of them and feel something they cannot quite name. Some proximity to a life so different from their own that it is almost incomprehensible. And yet, the hand that made it, the child that held it, the fire that was kept burning all winter, the heel that healed. The river is beginning to move differently. You can hear it from here. The ice at the edges is pulling back. The water is rising slightly with the melt from the ridge. The salmon are not here yet, but they are coming. You know this the way you know everything, not because someone told you, but because you have been paying attention, year after year, to what the world does next. You pick up your spear and walk toward the sound of the water.